So as we start out to try and find out answers, a lot of the answers are already in your heart and in your head. The thing is that a lot of times when things are taking place, that's the last thing that we think about, or what we're supposed to be doing. And we're talking about the answers that are taking place in your schools. And we're seeing that a lot of people know what to do afterwards, and you ask them the question and they know the right answers, but in the middle of the situation, it seems to be like the answer is not coming to the top of your head and you're not bringing it to the forefront. And we're talking about the elementary, where you guys have already gone through. How many have already gone through, all the way through elementary? Raise your hand. There you go. So almost all of you guys. And then how many are still not in high school? Raise your hand if you're not in high school. Okay. So we have a couple people that are in high school. There's about 5 of you. And the rest of you guys are in middle school. And middle school is preparing you for the next level of education and schooling and dealing with teachers and students. And so do you guys know who are the ones, is it boys or girls that get into more trouble? Does anybody know? Raise your hand if you know the answer to that. Jonathan? So if we say there's 10 boys in the school and 10 girls, how many of the boys will get in more trouble than the girls? What's the 1 out of 10 girls? 1 out of 10 girls, or if it's 1 out of 10 girls, how many of the boys are getting in trouble? How many? 10 out of 10? That's a high level. I don't think so. I think there might be one that doesn't get in trouble. And there might be 9, or there might be maybe 50%. Half of them are getting into trouble and the other half are not. So it depends, depending on the school we're going to. So what do you guys think is the most trouble that causes people to go to the office? What do you guys, what have you seen? Is Oliver? Talking back to the teacher? Being disrespectful, kind of? And so that'll get you out of a class real quick. Have you seen that happen in your classroom? Why do you think a student will talk back to his teacher? He's looking cool in front of his friends. Does anybody have any other answers with respect to why? One of them is you want to be cool in front of your friends, so you want to be the class clown. Juliana? Fool around, not take stuff serious. Alejandro? Huh? What are they doing? They're cursing. But I'm asking you, why would they disrespect the teacher? The first answer was they want to be cool, and the other ones, they want to clown around. Nicole?
They want to get attention.
They want to get attention. And so that's a crazy way to get attention, but I could see people doing that. How about you? They want to prove a point that they're tough. They're trying to defy authority and go against the system. All these answers are 100% correct. Different people have different reasons why they're not respecting the teacher. Anybody else? Why they would disrespect and talk back to the teacher?
They don't know what respect is.
They don't know. That's a good one. That's a very good one. There might be people who have never even been taught to respect, so they don't even know how. So they think they're just talking to a friend at the playground, or they think they're talking to somebody in the neighborhood and the teacher's there and telling them sit down, and then he just talks back to her because nobody has ever taught him. So that's a good answer, James, that a lot of people, they don't even know what they're doing is wrong. Okay, so we have they're being cool, they're clowning around, they want attention, they don't know what they're doing. Does anybody have any other ideas? They don't have an identity. You know, when you don't have an identity, and let's talk about that a little bit. Not having an identity means you don't know who you are. So maybe some people think, you know, that if you know that you're a student and you know who a teacher is and you know that you're supposed to participate with the teacher in a respectful manner, you'll be disrespectful because you think that it's just an environment of horseplay, of messing around. There's no order. I see a lot of, I've been in classrooms recently, and I see that even when the bell rings and it's time to take out the books and and start listening to teacher, people keep on going. And they keep on acting like they're not in class, and that there's no teacher, and that there's no assignment. And I want to know what would happen to a classroom that the bell rings to start the period, and the teacher never tells anybody to be quiet. What do you guys think will happen? Huh? They'll keep talking? They'll keep on acting like everything's normal? For how long? Huh? For the whole class? And then the bell will ring again and it's over and you leave and you didn't even study math or history or science. So that gets a little bit, what would you guys call that? What name would you put, James?
Chaos.
Chaos, disorder. There would be no, there would be no, I guess, there would be some students like pulling out their notebook, and other ones would just leave their notebook in their backpack. Other ones would be, it's so early in the morning, they'd be what? Sleeping. They'd be sleeping. And so everybody's doing everything. So chaos. Give me some other words. We've talked about disorder and chaos. Give some other words that go along those lines. Disaster. That's a big word. Catastrophe. Those are huge words, man. Dysfunction. Out of order. That's not functioning. That's what dysfunction means. When the teacher finally gets around to say something, is it ever the students that tell the other students, hey, I'm here to learn, be quiet? Do students ever do that? Like, hey, stop cutting off. This is my time to learn math, and if I don't learn math, I can't be an engineer. Is there ever a time where the student is the one that's telling other people, come on, man, I want to learn? That doesn't happen? Sometimes. Wow. It takes real guts to go against a classroom that everybody's talking, everybody's messing around, to stand up and say, listen, I want to learn my ABCs here. I want to learn how to read. I want to learn how to do math. But it's usually not going to come from a student. It's usually not going to come from us. It's very bizarre. How about, so we're talking about how to establish order, because I think that getting kicked out of a classroom and getting into a fight, and we're going to get into those things, being at the principal's office, what is the worst punishment that happens in a school setting to students?
To get expelled.
To get expelled? Get kicked out of school? Or they tell you just don't come back. You're not invited to come back. How many know a student that got kicked out of school? Wow, all of you. Man, you guys got some interesting friends. So we'll talk about that at the end, but right now we're going to talk about what happens in a classroom. Let's talk about this a little bit, just because you guys brought it up about a student being asked to leave. How do you guys feel when your friend is asked to not come back to school?
What on earth did you do that can do that?
You're like, there's a big question mark. What happened? You know, why did this guy was kicked out of school? How do you feel, though? One is wondering, you're asking what's happening. He feel ashamed, yeah. You feel shame for him. Go ahead. Disappointed. Yeah, you feel like, man, this girl's in class with me. We're together. We're having lunch together. We're spending, and she's asked not to come back. He's asked not to come back.
Sometimes you feel like he deserved to.
Oh, sometimes you're like glad. Thank God the guy went for a vacation so that we get to rest from his craziness. Let me ask you something. Going back to class order. Are there several warnings before something happens? Like how would you guys categorize? What is like the first level of like Go ahead.
Teacher says to be quiet.
Teacher says be quiet. And she'll do it quietly towards him. Or she'll say, listen, I'm giving you a warning. We need to. There used to be a time that the first couple of days of the school year, the first couple of weeks, they used to give you all the rules and go over when you come into the class, you got to sit down, you have to take out your pencil, take out your book, take out a paper, and they would give you those things. How does a student learn what he's supposed to do? What do you guys, when does that happen? When do they hear for the first time what they're supposed to do? Juliana? For the parents. So the parents usually say, you go there, and if you do something wrong, you're in trouble when you get home. And so when they come in the classroom, how do they know where to sit and how to be quiet? Who usually gives those rules at the beginning? The teacher. So the teacher will tell you exactly, are there seats by assignment? Assigned seats? Some classes not. And so if you come into a classroom and they give you assigned seats, who tells you what you're supposed to have on your desk?
The teacher.
Okay. What happens if you don't bring your book to class? Huh? A detention? Already?
Depends on the teacher.
Okay, we were doing the levels, right? Because first there's all the order of the rules, because if you're not getting on those, then you don't even know you're breaking the rules. So the first time the teacher will talk to you, is that like the first level of getting in trouble? I'll give you a warning. And usually what does a warning sound like? Who has ever got a warning? What's the warning sound like?
Scream at you very serious, like scare you.
They scare you the first time.
Like someone has anger issues, so he yells at you.
Huh?
Teacher that has anger issues, so he yells at you.
Whoa, that's an interesting standpoint. See, now we're not talking about students no more. We're talking about sometimes teachers have anger issues. So they're screaming at their students to get them to listen.
Sometimes the teachers threaten you.
They threaten you. So so we're going to get into that now also. The first warning is, what would the warning be? The first warning of a normal teacher. Yeah, please stop doing what you're doing because you're about to get in trouble. How many have ever got one of those, please stop because you're about to get in trouble? Everyone? Some of you have not. That's good. Out of all of you, one of them has not. Okay, so the second one, first is stop what you're doing or you're going to get in trouble. That could be considered a threat. What's the second level of getting in trouble? So if the person doesn't listen to the teacher and now, what's the second level?
They give you a small punishment and then they threaten to give you a bigger one.
Okay. And so there'll be levels of punishment. I'm going to write these down. What is the first level of punishment? Look, we already said that there's a warning, and we said that the second warning will come maybe a little bit louder, and then it'll threaten. Louder, and it'll have a threat. So finally, when you totally disregard, you're not doing what's right, you're not listening, and you're about to get in trouble, which is the louder threat. The third time that it's the same day, it's the same school, same teacher, and she's already gave you a warning. She's already been louder now. Now she's speaking maybe a little bit more serious, and now she gives a threat. How many have a teacher that spends the whole classroom just warning and warning and warning and warning and never does anything? Okay, how do you guys feel about those type of teachers? Huh?
Annoyed.
They're annoyed. They annoy you. Who else? They're not helping the kids because they never get to the reality of what's going on.
The class keeps on behaving the way they behave because they know the teacher isn't going to do anything.
There's no consequences, so they keep on doing stuff that is wrong. How many believe that type of teacher has more problems with the students? right? The one's always warning and warning and warning and never does anything about it. So we have a warning, we have louder warning with threats. Finally, we get to they're going to do something. What usually there's classrooms that have different ways of doing things. Maybe somebody will give you a mark on the chalkboard. How many have that? That they give you a mark on the chalkboard, and if you get a couple marks, then you're in trouble. Okay, so the marks is a way to show that she's serious. For you other ones that don't have that type of system, what is the next thing that a teacher does after she warns you and then she gets louder and she threatens you're about to get in trouble? What is like the next thing that they usually do, Nicole?
Detention.
A detention? Okay, that's one of the consequences of detention. How about you?
Our teacher usually makes us sit outside until the end of the period.
Outside in the hallway? Wow. That happens. You get excused, not from the school, but you get excused from class. How does that student feel?
Usually I see people like crying outside.
They're sad. They just got put outside the class and they're crying. Okay, that's one reaction. Usually a class clown will laugh and he'll think it's a joke, right? And he's outside. He's not sad, but he's just, huh? He'll wander off in the hallway, go to the water fountain. So there's detentions. There's go out to the hallway. How many have seen go to the corner? They used to do that in the old days. You stand in the corner, and in the old days, they used to put a hat on you and call you a dunce. You know, you're just not going to learn. So you're in the corner of the... How many have seen the teacher ask the student to come to the front of the class and sit in a desk closer to the teacher? How many... Okay, so almost all of you have seen that. How many have seen that work? That person settles down and starts paying attention. Is that a good way? Sometimes. So the consequences is get closer to the teacher. That way you can't be talking or joking around. You're closer to the teacher. Okay. Who has some other consequences? We have detention, out in the hallway, get closer to the teacher.
You would get like a referral or a demerit.
A referral.
It's like they mark it down on paper and it's like in your record.
Okay, so you can start getting a record of your disorder. That is that put in your school file? Okay, and that's not good. How about you, Alejandro? Huh? A principal's office? Woo! An appointment with the main man. And now you're shaking in your boots because now you're going downstairs. Okay, so we have the principal. What's another consequence that we see happen inside classrooms? A call? They'll make you call your parents? How many like that? That's scary. That is scary. Raise your hand if they've ever called your parents. That works, man. They used to call my parents, and I was in trouble. So consequences of calling your parents. How many would like to get in trouble in school, but not with your parents? What would be your favorite? Would you rather them call your parents or them just to correct you and punish you at school so your parents don't find out? Right? It's better school, right? Now, watch this. Watch this. This is super important. What if you don't have parents? And the teacher's saying, I'm going to call your parents. I'm going to call your parents. They're like, I haven't seen my dad in 15 years. And my mom, I don't know who she is. So they're like, call my parents. I want to see them too. Call my parents. I want to talk to them too. And a lot of guys, how many have friends that they don't have a relationship with their dad? They don't have a relationship, at home. So calling the parents really doesn't make anything. What's another way people are getting in trouble? The consequences of not listening to teacher.
They have meetings with the principal and the parents.
Oh yeah, those. That's not a call, man. That's like you come in here. We want to talk to you and your parents. So it's not a call. It's a meeting. And boy, those meetings are scary.
Sometimes the teachers will embarrass the students in class.
Oh yeah. A lot of times teachers will embarrass students and call. How many have seen a teacher call a student names? Like, hey, you knucklehead, you bobo, you retard, you How many feel that that is a way to get somebody's attention? That is a good way, right? No? What does that produce? More disrespect. So if the teacher is not being respectful, a lot of the students are not going to respect that teacher. And if the teacher is saying things that is hurting, not physical hurt, but emotional hurt, that in the long run brings more problems. So we have detention, hallway, side of the room. You get a referral. You get closer to the teacher. You go down to meet the principal. They call your parents. You meet with the parents. What other things do we have, Brian? Suspension. Now you're getting heavy. Suspension is the same thing as being asked not to come back. How many have ever heard of an indoor suspension? What was that called? Huh? Say it again. A detention in school. That's pretty interesting. That like, what day will that usually be? Is that on a school day? And what is that department? When you get an indoor suspension, when I was going to school and I was 13 years old, it was called CSI. They still have that?
They'll mostly put you in a room.
There are a whole bunch of people there, right?
No, a room by yourself.
A room by yourself. Is there a teacher there?
Yeah, it's mostly in the library.
How many have gotten an indoor suspension? Raise your hand. Okay. So then you guys are talking to me about all my friends used to get indoor suspension. So it's one classroom with everyone in the school that got indoor suspension. So it's pretty much, these are the guys that are cutting up in class, and they have to spend a whole day, depending on 1 day indoor suspension, 2 day, 3 day, a week indoor suspension, depending on how bad it is, what you've done. So far, what you guys got with me is that you disrespect the teacher, you're not prepared for class, you're not listening to instructions. What other problems or troubles do kids get into nowadays? Saturday school also? That has to be a real punishment. Everybody's out of school and you're in school. So that's another form of punishment. But why would people get in trouble?
Cheating.
Cheating on like a test or an exam or homework?
Some of the students will say inappropriate things in front of the teachers and their friends.
Okay, so disrespectful words or disrespectful attitude, all these things. What did you say? Cheating? Okay, cheating, doing things that the teacher asks you not to do, being honest. Bullying. Okay. How many have seen bullying go on? Raise your hand. Okay, bullying is defined by hurting another student, either with words or physical, making fun of, pushing around, knocking their books down. So bullying is one of those things that you could get really in trouble for. When we talk about bullying, we all know that bullying usually takes place when? When no one's looking, right? That's when bullying takes place. How many has ever seen a friend of yours bully somebody in front of a teacher? Yeah, but not often, right? But it does happen. And usually when the teacher sees them bullying, that's when the teacher starts saying either stop it or she starts giving the consequences of a bullying. Can you get kicked out of a school for bullying? Especially now, right? Because there's zero tolerance. Somebody wants to explain to me what zero tolerance means? Juliana? Doesn't tolerate it at all. No exceptions, no excuses. If you do it, it doesn't matter why you did it. You're gonna be out. Okay, so a lot of people will talk about what you guys have just finished talking about, which is how students get in trouble and how the teacher deals with it and who will eventually be involved with it, which are parents and the principal. During the day, where do you guys think that most people get in trouble? Is it at the beginning of the day? Is it during PE? Is it during lunch? Is it after lunch? Is it almost when school is almost over? If you think it's at the beginning of the day when the students first get to class, raise your hand. Okay, so there's not a lot of messing around with sleepyheads. Okay, if you think it's at lunchtime, if you think that a lot of people find trouble, some of my friends, when I was in school, used to say, wait till we get to the lunchroom. When we get to the lunchroom, you're going to see what's going to happen. And a lot of friends would grab food and throw it at their friend, or they would pick fights, or, you know, that was a time where there wasn't much supervision. So it's not at the beginning of the day, and you guys are telling me lunchroom is pretty much peaceful. How about at PE, when you're in the locker room? How many have seen that that's a good time to get in trouble? Okay, and usually people are changing, or they're getting ready to go play sports, and they're a little bit more wrestling, or they wait to go outside to the grass or to the basketball court. How many think that it's after school? Is that when a lot of people get the most trouble? And why do you guys think that they're getting more trouble after school? There's no more class order. There's no more teachers around. You remember that we talked about early mornings. How about on a bus going to school? Anybody heard about people getting in the bus? People are grumpy in the morning. They didn't eat breakfast. They didn't have their Cheerios. They're like, don't mess with me. And some people are eating breakfast on the bus. They're not sharing their Wheaties, their Cheerios, their Lucky Charms. Let me ask you guys a question. There used to be a time where they had hall monitors, other students that were patrolling the hallways, or maybe sometime the teacher goes, I need to go down the hall a second, and I'm going to pick Sebastian to be the classroom monitor, right? Do you guys think that students do better with classroom monitors than they do with a teacher? Do they get wild? Yes. And what's the classroom monitor do? Starts taking names?
Yeah, they pick the person that mostly gets in trouble.
Louder. Go ahead, louder.
They usually pick the person that mostly gets in trouble.
Or somebody you don't like.
Okay, so they pick the class bully to be the class monitor. So nobody better mess around, because the class bully is going to get you after school. Jonathan, what happens usually when there's a class monitor in, Everybody behaves? They don't listen to him? They take advantage?
They take a joke on it.
Okay. Does he lose a lot of friends during that time, or pretty much he lets, or does he let them cut up a little bit, and then just as long as they stay in classroom?
The class monitor
Yeah?
also includes what he enjoys it, makes it also a good.
Absolutely. He enjoys the authority of being the teacher. Okay, so we've already done what the rules are, how you could get in trouble, and where these things are taking place the most. So we always say that it's easier to see problems. We could all see problems. We could all see a student that is messing up. Let's do this, because we did this a little bit, but we didn't talk about it at all. Why? And we said that he wants to clown around. He wants to get attention. He is ignorant. He doesn't have an identity. We went through all these things that is why people get in trouble. Give me some more things as to why somebody would want to not go to school and not pay attention and not do good in class. Everett. How would you guys define caring? So one thing that you could care about are grades. That's one aspect of caring. I want to get good grades. So if he says they don't care and why they're getting in trouble, I'm going to tell you what a lot of times happens. What happens a lot of times is that the student, he doesn't even understand what's happening. So if you guys are dividing and you're doing algebra and you're doing all these things, and he never even learned how to add and subtract. And so he's a little bit behind and everybody's ahead, and now he's like, you guys are leaving me behind, so I really don't care. So that's one of the aspects of caring. And you said caring about your grades, but if you don't know what you're doing, then you can't even get a good grade, even if you did care, because you're not prepared. So what would be another reason for getting in trouble for some of these students?
Sometimes they don't have the right authority to guide them.
They don't have who teaches them. And it's super important. And I want to tell you that the opposite of instruction is destruction. If you're not being instructed, then the opposite is you're being destructed. What is the word that's in there in instruction and destruction? What is the middle word? Somebody, I'm going to point to Alex. Structure. This is it, guys, right here. What does structure mean? Say with me, putting it together. Woo! And if you're not putting it together, it's falling apart. It's falling apart. And so when somebody's life is being put together and they're building something, it feels good. How many have ever built something? You built like a sand castle, you built a bicycle, you built a computer. Let's talk about the things you guys have built. We'll go, Evan, have you built something? Legos? Absolutely. I love Legos. Absolutely. Legos, you give me Legos and I'll stay there for hours. And sometimes there were competitions. There was a little ramp. It was like 4 feet. And people were building little cars. And I wanted to build the fastest Lego car. And so when you're doing that stuff, it feels good, except when you lose. So building Legos is good. How about you? What have you built? Sandcastle. You sit there and you're in the beach with your family and friends and you guys say, hey, let's build a sandcastle. And you start putting that together. What is the most awful feeling after you built a sandcastle? What is the most awful feeling? When somebody comes, listen, when somebody steps on it. Listen, when it falls apart, you're like, man. And so all these emotions come when things are not being built. When you're building it, you feel good. When you're building your Legos, it feels good. Jonathan, what have you built? Legos also? Christmas tree. And it's really amazing. We have a Christmas tree over there. And when you're building a Christmas tree, after you finish, you're like, man, look, I put that puppy together. You ever built anything? Ever built a kite?
Yeah.
Could you build it wrong?
Yeah.
What happens when you build it wrong?
It doesn't fly.
It doesn't fly, and it feels horrible, and you're wasting your time, and then you're all excited about wanting, and you're like, why doesn't it? And you feel bad. So when we're getting into this instruction period, and a lot of people don't understand that school is a very important time for instruction. It's a super important time. And if you miss one phase, if you ever build something and you're reading the rules and you miss one phase, you can't put the rest of it together. And some people are missing portions of their learning. You ever built anything? Robots? That's interesting. And what else? Cars and airplanes? With glue or snap-on? All kinds. Huh? All kinds. And as soon as you finish building one of those beautiful little cars, you just throw it on the ground and throw it in the trash, right? No. You keep that up in your room, and every time somebody comes in, you say what? That was me. I built that. So there's a sense that feels good, and there's a sense of ownership to what you build. And what is falling apart and what is being destroyed, it really puts you on a down slant. And we're going to keep on going here for a second. You ever build anything? Legos also? Not, you can't think of something? They do arts and craft at school. You put things together with glue, right? Yeah. Ever do that at school with art class? Robots also? Legos? A cake! That's fun! Listen, you guys don't know how fun it is to do cakes and to do recipes. When you're doing a cake, have you ever had a cake that went and it deflated and you can't put the frosting on it? Again, it's all tied to what we're doing, to our emotions. To our emotions. Sarah? The alphabet? I don't understand. Somebody tell me. To make a bed, you're putting together the mattress and the sheets and the pillow, and you make your bed. How many have ever made their bed and then somebody comes and like messes it up? And you felt great, right? No, you don't feel great. You're like, who came over here? Goldilocks is sleeping on my bed, and somebody's been sleeping on my bed, and we don't like that. We don't like that. Juliana. Huh? A fort. How many have made a cardboard box fort? Right? And it's all part of design, and it's fun. Once you make something, to use it is fun. How many have ever done a paper airplane? Right? And when you use it, it's fun. What you're learning and what you've done is an actual, you could participate with it. A metal fireplace? Put it together. Very good. A robot. We have some scientists here, man. Like these. You guys are building these drones, right? Shh. Origami, right? Japanese art. Basketball hoop. Putting that stuff together. And it's fun when it stays up, but it's horrible when it keeps on falling down. Huh? Legos. Gingerbread house, woo! With food. I used to eat all the candies from the gingerbread, so when it's time to put them up, there's no candy in the gingerbread.
A turtle on the beach made of sand.
Awesome. To make sculptures out of sand. So this is what the basic unit of learning is, to be able to project in the future, to put things together. And there's no greater feeling in the world than to be able to learn, to make things, to build things, to be part. How many have ever, okay, so we talked about things, but how many have had to work with someone else to make something with someone else? How many have had a bad team member that couldn't, all of you guys, man, what is going on here? The most important thing about learning is to be able to work with other people. And how many agree with this old saying, 2 is better than 1? Yes. Why? Because it's stronger, because it's just 4 eyes, they could think together, they could plan together, and teamwork is huge. But teamwork takes 2 people that are willing to work together. And if you have one person that doesn't want to be instructed, how could he ever get together with another person? What happens with 2 people that never got instructed and are trying to do something together? What's going to happen? They're not going to get anything done. They'll never be able to agree on anything. They won't be able to work together. So a lot of the training and a lot of the schooling that we're doing in our younger years is to be able to instruct ourselves so that we could instruct and be together with other people that are instructed. But if we have a opposite, we said that structure is good. And what do you guys think is the first place that we learn structure? Anybody have that secret? What's the secret of the first place where we get to learn the secret wisdom of structure? Huh? School? Nope. It's good try though. At our home. How many have ever heard of this really weird word called family? Right? And that's the first place that we learn how to understand structure. Structure, something built to last, right? Something that who could name me a structure? So we're just talking about structures. What's a structure?
The Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower is a structure. Okay, how many people live in the Eiffel Tower? But it's a structure though.
Capitol building.
A Capitol building. How many people live at the Capitol building? A lot of people work there, but they don't live there. The White House. Okay, we got the White House. That's a structure. The Empire State Building. Oh, you guys are into commercial structures, but I was looking for something that is the first structure where you go to after you come out of the hospital when you're born. Everett? A house. That's a structure. Now, how many have ever lived in a house that has fallen apart because of an earthquake or a hurricane? It just fell on everybody that lived inside. Okay? How many would think that that's an awful thing to happen? Exactly. So when a person's life has no structure, good or bad? How about if you're able to find somebody that was nice enough and patient enough and knowledgeable enough to help you put structure together? How much would that cost? How much would you pay for that? Lots. How about giving your attention? Right? How about value? Give that person value. What happens to a person who gives a person who knows how to build structure no value? Can he get instruction? So if there's no instruction coming, what's the end result? Destruction. So the same thing of destruction is the word falling apart, where things are not connected. So in the very beginning, when you're putting a structure together, how many of you know what the first level of structure is? Anybody know? What is the first basic level of structure? You see here, Matthew. Woo! That guy knows his stuff. Are you an engineer, sir? An architect? No? How did you learn about that? That foundation is the first? My dad. You need a foundation, son. That's awesome. How about somebody who tries to build with no foundation? How many know what a foundation is? Go ahead, Sebastian. Tell us what a foundation is.
It's like a base of
The base, absolutely. It's the basic level that a structure goes on. How about you? What you build on. If you don't have a foundation, what happens? Anybody knows? Nicole? It falls apart. Maybe not fast. Maybe not after a couple of days or months or years, but eventually it'll fall apart because there's no foundation. So we say the foundation is what you build upon. It's the basic part of structure. How many think that elementary is the foundation? Absolutely. That's where you start. And then if you're wise, you go into middle school and you'll get more what?
Education.
More instruction. And your instruction is actually doing something. What's it doing? Say with me, building your life. Isn't that awesome? And so you'll see two types of people in class and in school. Wise build on a foundation, and fools give no value to foundation. So I had a friend that messed around in in elementary and middle school, and he never learned how to spell because he wouldn't take class serious. So he didn't know how to spell words. So now he's working for a corporation, and the boss and the main guy says, hey, do me a favor, write me a letter so that we can go and tell this company that we need more materials. And he went back to his office and he didn't know how to spell. The letter was a mess. He had to call his wife because his wife was a good student. She had instruction. And she said, honey, help me write this letter. Because when I was in school, I didn't pay attention. I was clowning around. I was fooling around. I wasn't listening to the teachers. And so it's super important that we understand these concepts. After you finish placing that foundation, which is the place where you build and you're able to build a structure on, you can go on to another level of instruction. And a lot of people's lives, we're going to talk about your personal life. What would be a foundation for a young man who wants to be successful in his life in those first years of learning, of instruction? What would be part of foundation that's super important, that you cannot build without? A family is that structure and place where God puts you for instruction. So just like Matthew said, my dad taught me about foundations. And that's good. How old are you, Matthew? 11 years old, and he already knows about foundations. What happens with an 11-year-old that doesn't know about foundations? He's just not going to pay attention. Okay? So what is a personal... when we're talking about, when we talk about concrete buildings, we know that foundation is made out of cement. But if we're talking about a life and not of a concrete building, what would be a foundation? God puts you in the structure of family where your parents are speaking to you. But give me one thing that you need to build a foundation as a young boy or girl. God's Word is a good part. You have some instruction in learning what the Bible says. How about something called obedience? Super important or not important? Real important, or you can build a structure without obedience? Right. What would happen to somebody who's disobedient? Structure or destruction? Why? Huh? Not listening. Okay, so part of the foundation is being a good listener. And if you're talking all the time and you don't listen, I always say, how many ears do you have?
2.
How many mouths?
1.
What's that mean? We need to listen more than to talk, right? If you have 2 ears, it's so that you can make sure that... What about people that don't listen? Because we're going to put, the first one is obedience. The second foundation I'm going to put is listening. Do you guys think that somebody who doesn't listen could build a structure?
No.
What will happen to somebody who's not a good listener?
No.
He'll probably forget. He didn't hear. He wasn't a good listener. How many of you guys are good listeners? Do you guys talk more or listen more? You guys got stuck. I'm going to gather that if in the classroom, you guys told me that when kids get to school, in the classroom, everybody's talking, no one's listening. And the teacher is trying to get everybody to and not right. So all these things are super important. And maybe some of us don't understand that. Maybe some of us weren't taught to be good listeners. But a lot of times, how many know a good listener? Do you know a good listener? And have you ever ran into a good listener? I'm going to say something right now. Ready? Who is the best listener in the whole world in our lives? Our mom, right? Our moms are listening, and they're always listening, and they're always hearing what we want, and they always are. We're telling them what's going on, and they're listening. So a lot of times our mom or our grandmother, right? Our grandmother's listening, or a family member, or somebody is a really close friend. How many have a good friend that's a great listener? If you have a friend that's a great listener, I'm going to say you're a great talker. Because they're doing all the listening, you're doing yap, 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 yap. So that concept of obedience as a foundation, listening, obedience, listening. Give me some other examples of laying a good foundation. Things that are going to help you.
Having authority.
Huh?
Being under authority.
Being able to respect leaders. Let me ask you guys a question. Where is all this instruction coming from? Does anybody know where instruction comes from? From somebody who knows. He's usually called, say with me, instructor. Who's an instructor? A teacher. Who hates teachers? The one who doesn't want to be instructed. He has no appetite for learning. He's not listening. He's not putting his life together. It's falling apart. Give me another example of a foundation that you need. Integrity. That's a big word. Man, you've been talking to your father too much here. Okay? Integrity is, you need integrity to be able to form a structure. Why? I'll tell you why. When you build, there's something called, in construction, it's called building integrity. So, sometimes you're going to need to build your walls with concrete blocks, but you went out and you said, I'm not going to have integrity, I'm going to build with foam. They told you to build with concrete blocks, but you didn't walk in the instruction. You had no integrity. You didn't do what you were taught. You did something less. So they told you use concrete blocks, so you have a concrete block structure, and you used foam. What happens? No integrity. Here comes a storm. What happens to foam in the storm? It crumbles. It falls apart because you had no integrity. They told you A, and you said, I'm just going to go with B. It's the same. And you change. That's called having no integrity. You do something different than what you were told. Say with me, no integrity.
No integrity.
That's when you're taught something and you don't do it. Now, somebody who is taught how to build their lives and does what they've been taught, what do they have? Integrity. They have the fullness. Okay, so we have obedience, we have listening, we have respecting authorities, we have integrity. What else do you need for a foundation? Bless you. Patience. How many, when you're building something, you have no patience? And you're like, let's put this thing together. I don't care how it... See, when you have no patience, your structure and your life begins to fall apart. Give me an example of somebody who didn't have patience as a young person and was trying to build structure, but they had no patience. What ends up happening? I had a friend that didn't want to wait to get old and get married, so they were not patient, and they had a what? They had a baby. They didn't wait for the time in life when you're supposed to have a baby. So they, without their patience, they ran ahead into areas that it wasn't the time for. So not having patience becomes a mess. In that particular instance, they told the girl, she was 15 years old, you didn't have patience, you didn't wait, you didn't have instruction, you didn't do it right, your life is falling apart, you can't come to school. We don't allow mothers to come to school. And so at a young age, she was 15 years old, and she was asked to go home because she had no patience, and she went on. How many are in high school and have heard that this happens? Right? A lot of people have to, their life, they ran too fast because they had no patience. What's another example of not having patience? Huh? That's another foundation, maturity. When you don't have patience, what happens?
Don't have patience with having a boyfriend.
Yeah, when you don't have patience in having a boyfriend, you usually get a dumb boyfriend, right? Because he hasn't been learned yet. He hasn't listened. He doesn't know what to do or how to do it. And he's asking you to have a relationship, but he hasn't learned. So usually a person that's not patient in having a relationship is very selfish. Because to have the instruction for relationship is to not be selfish. Does anybody know the opposite of selfish? Unselfish. No, I'm just kidding. The opposite of selfish is love. Okay? Were you going to say that? Okay. So when you are able to love somebody, you stop being selfish. And selfish is you only see through your eyes. But love allows you to see through other people's heart. And you give time for other people to express their feelings. And so a lot of people that have no foundation are super selfish. They don't even, no one taught them they have to have love first. So you had said maturity too. That's a great foundation. What is maturity? You got to be louder. Knowing what to do in the right time. Okay, that's a great definition for maturity. Knowing what to do at the right time. What is the opposite of maturity? Immature. Okay? The opposite of maturity is immaturity. And if maturity is knowing how to do things at the right time, what is immaturity? Doing them at the wrong time. So we need to understand that maturity is a process. How many of you were born mature? It's impossible. Because when you're a child, you're super immature. Why? You need to be instructed. You need a process of maturity. So nobody, there's not a teacher, there's not a principal, there's not anyone who has ever been born mature, because we all had to be taught and we all had to learn how to do the right thing at the right time. Say that with me. Right thing at the right time. What is that? Maturity. Wrong thing at the wrong time. Immaturity. And then when you mix these things around, where you say, I did the right thing at the wrong time, you were, immature. And if you did the wrong thing at the right time, you were immature. Why? Because maturity is doing the right thing at the right time. Okay? And so it's going to take, how many agree that it's going to take a while before we do the right thing at the right time? Right? It's going to take a while. And that's our goal, to be able to mature, because that's a foundation to be able to build and make things in our lives. If you're born in the structure of a family, is maturity being able to make your own family? Right? To build your own family, to know how to put a life together, where you finally grow up, you've received all the instruction, you're all mature, you've listened, you've respected, you were patient, you have integrity. Now you're ready to build a family, which is called a structure, right? So who is going to be born in that family? Little boys and little girls. And if there's peace, if there's joy, if mom and dad get along and they're respectful, you have a great structure. If everybody's selfish, if nobody's patient, if no one has integrity or respect or obedient, if no one's listening, what do you have? Say with me, destruction. Everything falls apart. So today we've done super powerful in being able to understand these things. A lot of friends of mine over the years had no idea. They had no idea that you can follow maturity, you can follow and have a foundation, you can love instruction. There's a saying that says, a wise man loves instruction. A wise man loves instruction. Why would a wise man love instruction? Anybody want to say?
So he could be prosperous.
So that things could go well. So he could prosper and be successful. Now, if a wise man loves instruction, what does a fool do? He despises instruction. How many could ever see a fool having despised instruction being successful? How many think he'll be successful? Not going to be successful. He's going to be away from a foundation. He'll be away from these principles. He'll not listen. He won't receive instruction. He won't obey. His life is going to be shambles. And Matthew said crumbs. It'll crumble. Everything will fall apart. So I think it's super powerful that you guys were here tonight. Let's give a big hand for all of you guys. I think you guys did a great job. And one day you guys are going to be giving these classes, and you guys are going to be teaching people that character matters. Let's all say that. Character matters. God bless you guys.